Get a few minutes to set up because we're almost ready to run here again. Welcome back to another wordy weekend. This is a continuation. We last stopped around I think it was 1:30 in the morning. It's now 4:40 in the afternoon. I slept in a bit longer than I expected to. So we're running with our pilgrim character. This is one of the outfits I got this guy Mike. So let's run with the pilgrim. Let's do the first run with the pilgrim here. We're gonna run for about an hour and then we'll stop and then we'll come back again. Typically, it takes about we can usually get about between 4 and 5 runs in, 4 or 5 characters in uh, per hour. And it's not quite an hour, just about like 45 minutes. 50, last one was 55 minutes. So we try to keep it under an hour. I realized the problem that once the video goes over a half hour, the sound is gone. There is no more sound in terms of the media. So there was that media volume there. Get the volume right. Better. I don't know whether it's a glitch or it has something to do with the fact. Oh, missed that first letter there. Or whether it has something to do with the ads. Well, at least we have our voice here. We can talk. And what I've decided is that we're going to add in a discussion, particularly on the wordy weekend. Anything that takes about an hour in length or more, we will have a discussion as we play. So it's not just going to be gameplay. There's going to be gameplay and a discussion. Uh, it is, from what I've experienced yesterday, testing it out, trying to chat while gameplay. Uh, is not that possible on an Android phone. The screen is too small to have the chat up, and it didn't work too well because there was such a lag when we were, when I had it up on the desktop at the same time. So, if you want to participate in the discussion in a fashion or so, what will happen is that you comment on the YouTube channel when the video goes up, and the video should be up within 2 hours of airtime. So we're now, it's 4 o'clock. This video should be up on YouTube by 6. So look for it there. Make your comments there. Nice run. 942 coins. Take a picture. And what will happen is I will make an endeavor to comment on your comment when we're on the air. In other words, I will reply back to your comments as much as I can uh, during the discussion. So during the live portion, so if you're not in this live portion right now, you'll be in the next one or the one following. So that way it keeps things sort of in a reasonable. Let's see if I can get this now. Nope, wasn't able to get it. And our discussion topic for today is a rather controversial one. But then again, being independent minded, I don't see an issue with it. It's Hilary Clinton, evil incarnate in the face of social. of postmodernist socialism, and there is such a thing as that. The to sort of preface and sort of bring in background qualifiers, socialism is split into two kind of spheres. Um, if you want to say in the basic manner, because it does get more complex. Socialism breaks up into a lot of different, if you call them genres and groupings. To understand this, all we have to do is go back and study the French Revolution and look at characters and demigods like Robespierre and see how France, through its socialist revolution, wound up with Napoleon as its emperor again. So it went from having kings to having an emperor. It never Europe was never really able to shake its sense of entitlement, royalty. Now, even when they had a chance to throw off their oppressors, what happens? The royalty came back in again through another door. And so we have a changing of royalty every once in a while through revolution and violent and violence, basically through civil war. And if you study that aspect of history, you begin to understand what socialism is all about. That it is really another form of monarchy. Just what happens is that there's better advertising with it as compared to before. So, but that's what happens. Each individual, like you'll have, uh, you look at the study of the communist revolution in Russia that produced the Soviet Union. Not only did you have Vladimir Lenin, but you had Trotsky, you had Stalin, you had a whole variety of different people, all within the same grouping called the Bolsheviks, all vying for control and power. And while they were talking about, open freedoms and rights and so on and so forth, as soon as they were able to get some degree of control, then all the freedoms went out the door. And they always had good reasons for, why people needed to give up their rights in order for the state to protect the rights of in order to protect your rights, in order for the state to protect your rights, you had to give up your rights to the state. And so within the communist revolution itself, you had head start. We'll double it up, but swipe this away. Yeah, so you have within the communist revolutions, you had three fundamental groupings. You have the Leninists, you have the Stalinists, and you have the Trotskyites, and all of them. Those three groupings there came out of one of the main philosophies of socialism, Marxism. And then again, oh, I'm a Marxist. Well, ask them exactly what they think about Marxism in terms of how they approach these things. And the thing is, are they indeed Marxist or are they something else? And take the picture here. With this guy here, we scored 1,000. We got 310. So you look at the scoring down here, and so we got into just at the bottom of silver there. So that's without anything special. Yeah. So what happens is that you can basically say, okay, someone's a Marxist, but Marxism occurs before a fundamental split that affected Hillary Clinton. So Hillary Clinton is exposed to socialism, but not in the same manner that a Marxist would be. A Marxist exists in a world that's basically pre 1945, pre-atomic bomb, nuclear world. Sometimes you get tongue tied there. And in a pre-nuclear world, science ruled all. And this was theoretical side. This was it was this is and this is when you hear the term modern science, this is what they're referring to. They're not referring to the current science that's going on now. They're referring to an older science that was deterministic, pre 1945, where science was the highest truth, right? The mathematics, the formulas, the theories, that was considered to be the highest truth there was. Because they say, well, God, the church doesn't really have a monopoly on truth anymore. They were showing that a lot of what was coming out of the papacy and the church itself was false, which it was. But that's a topic for another discussion. Why the not all of Christianity, but just simply the European Christianity is a false Christianity. It's not a real Christian. It's not really Christian. It's not really Christian at all. Matter of fact, if you actually sit down and look at the original Christian theology, you would find from the papacy on up, post 1000 A.D., that the European Christianity that's defined as sort of Christianity itself is actually anti-Christian. It's fundamentally opposed and fundamentally uh, well, in many ways, yeah, opposed, opposite, in many ways, opposed to the original Christianity, which is based on actually Christ was the first anti-establishment, was the first anti-establishmentarian, and then that's actually what got him crucified. If let's not get into the theological aspects of Christ, to simply look at what actually happened. Christ was going around saying that he was God, and that the authorities, like the rabbis and so on and so forth, didn't matter. That you had an individual relationship with God who you now could consider your father. It was no longer a master servant relationship. It was now father and son, open to everybody. While if you have an authority situation where you are running the show and you have your position of authority, and this guy's coming around saying, "Hey, don't worry about listening to this guy. The only truth here is the Father, and you have a direct relationship with the Father." Well, that's gonna push your position right out. You're not gonna be able to collect money. You're not gonna be able to collect taxes, and most of the religions, including Judaism, all have their taxes. This is where uh, the Islam gets its sin tax from. Right? You're gonna live in the world. You're gonna be sinful. Well, the church, the authorities in the church are gonna tax you for it. This is what the indulgences were. This is ironically enough in the Church of Socialism, uh, the environmental tax, the carbon credits. Carbon credits are simply another form of indulgence. And these indulgences and so on and so forth, these are means of public control. This is a means of establishing authority, right? You have accreditation, you have recognition. Uh, do you have a certain degree from a certain college that is recognized for so and so, right? Well, that's all subjective. That's all based on subjective authority. It's not objective. Anything that's actually objective stands on its own. It's independent of somebody's authority. But of course, people being people, people want to be told in many ways what to do. Because what happens when you sort of know the rules, you get these people who like to be in control. They are these, I'll call them mini Hitlers or the mini fascists who run their life very strictly and very regimented. These are the military types who enjoy, kids should be in camps where they're marching up and down the street and uh, behaving like little soldiers. You line them up and have them salute, have them march to a certain particular tune, make sure that everything is, military. And that's their idea of how you're supposed to live. And they have rules for everything. So imagine someone coming along and saying, well, yeah, you have these rules, these are nice. But the relationship with God is more important than the rules. Say this to a kosher rabbi. That God is more important than the kosher rules. Most Orthodox rabbis, if they even well they if you're not properly Orthodox, for some of the Orthodox, they won't even talk to you, and they'll actually cross the street to avoid you because they're not supposed to talk to you or anything like that. Of course, if it's on a Saturday, then that's a different story because they're not supposed to walk more than a certain number of steps, and then they're in violation of the kosher laws. They're no longer kosher. So uh, there's that aspect of things as well. Christ was originally anti-establishment. That's the original. Christ did not set up the authority of the church. The authority that the church has through Roman Catholicism that everyone's been taught in school is fictional. It's not there in the original theology of the church. It only comes in much later on via the papacy, post 1000 AD. And this is why you actually have the Crusades. This is why you see the Battle of Hastings, uh, where the Church of England refused to kneel before the papacy. And what you see in Europe, from England to Poland to the Ukraine, now currently in Ukraine, you see an attack on the original Christian churches who refused to kneel before the Pope and recognize him as supreme pontiff, right? The supreme authority, the vicar of Christ, Christ on earth, the replacement for Christ. Which, ironically enough, the term vicar and vicarious, the Latin term for the official title for the Pope, actually in Greek, there is a Greek term for this, and it's anti. In Greek, they pronounce it. You don't hear the term anti or antichrist because the proper anti is actually two words. It's the Greek word tis, which means of, and the an means in place of. So you have antis Christos, in place of Christ. Right? That's what vicarious means. Vicarious is in place of Christ. And what happens is the Pope takes the place of Christ. So when you're a Catholic, you don't believe in Christ. You're not saved through Christ. You believe in the church. You believe in the papacy. And through the papacy, he decides whether you're saved or not. This is how the Pope can demote or promote saints. This is his so-called authority. Yep. Make a little bit of mistake here. Yeah, so the Pope's authority is not real. It's something that's created, and in the term, in the Greek understanding of things, because it's not that the church was officially Greek. Greek was simply the common language at the time, so a large chunk of the terminology of the church actually comes from the Greek, because it was the common language, not because it was something more special or significant. But most people today, when they talk about the church, are talking about the anti-Christian papacy and beyond. Because if you sit down and you go through some of the details and see where we are here. Oh, we're going to be running with Ramona now. No, this is a Madam Butterfly. We're running with her. I didn't change the character. I did some extra runs with that character, the Pilgrim character. So, so this is when you hear people talk about Christianity. In many cases, they're referring to the papal type of Christianity, where there is an authority within the church, not necessarily a choice. The original Christian church, and this is the one that I follow, the church is a choice. It's done. It's all based on free will. You choose what you want to do and what your relationship with Christ is going to be. There is no mandated relationship with God or Christ. It's your choice. And everything is more or less family oriented rather than being institutionally oriented. And of course, this will freak out anyone who's an authoritarian and believes that authority should rule and that authority is divine, which it isn't. Authority is actually from hell. So I follow my sort of path in life, my belief, uh, pretty much as an individual. I'm an individualist. I'm a nonconformist, in many ways to the extreme. I have no affinity or affection for simply joining in because everybody else is doing the same thing. Typically, after a while, you begin to question and say, okay, well, why am I doing this? And when you start taking a look around and sort of seeing, okay, asking these questions, you'll find a very rude response from your friends within these particular groups. And it's kind of thinking, what the hell are you doing? Because there are certain, even in groups that consider themselves to be non-mainstream, there's this whole thing between mainstream and the non-mainstreams. Well, we're not mainstream. We are so and so. We are punk. We are rock and roll. We are, add uh, your suffix to it, the identity, and whatever we are outside the mainstream, we don't accept the mainstream. This includes the goth and whatever, uh, goth mod scene, emo. They all have the uniforms. They all have their dress codes. And as soon as you step outside these rules and guidelines, you'll catch hell for it. They'll completely freak out. I mean, they'll be all in the same situation again. That in mainstream, you were kicked out of mainstream and say, well, nice knowing you, Dan. Uh, nice knowing you, Cyborg Alpha. But you're no longer welcome here. You're not part of us. You're not one of us. We try to accommodate you. We try to help you change they think for the better. These are people who are concerned for you, they love you, and you know. But you need to be a little less you and more of us in terms of how you behave and what you say and what you think. Ooh, another good run. But that's not me. And I left mainstream society a long, long time ago. Sort of get kicked out. I did try to get back in, but didn't never ended up working out. Every time I try to get into a group, the me that is me always at some point in time, no matter how normal I tried to act, the me always came out. Well, well, why do you have to do this? And why do you have to do that? Why can't I just pick and choose what I like and what I don't like? Well, that's not the way it's done. See, in order to be rock and roll, you can't like the Bee Gees or anything else that's considered to be disco, or you can't like funk, you can't like black music, you can't like, and the list goes on and on. Right? Hanging out with a crowd of funk, well, you're not exactly black, and and so while yeah, it kind of matters. You have to be black to hang out with us, and not really black. Although my last name my last name is actually, if you translate it from the Greek into the English, it is nigger. My last name is Kata, and Kata is from caramel. Caramel means it's actually these are two Greek words. Caramel, two Greek words. It's kara means dark or burnt, and meli means honey. So caramel means dark or burnt honey. And that's because we are not European Greeks, my family background. We are Asiatic Greeks from Turkey and into India. This is the Greeks we're from. Remember, Alexander the Great went all the way into India. And so we are, my family, we're Asiatic Greeks. We're not European Greeks. And so that's why we have the last name Kara. Ironically enough, you go into the history of the word nigger, you'll find it goes back to basically the Latin word nigra, and from nigra you go there. From the Latin you go back into the Greek, and it means the same thing: dark, colorful. This is why you have the in the South America they have Rio Negro, and again this is the whole gender thing coming back again. Uh, in the languages like Latin, you had a feminine, masculine, and then you also had a neuter. And Rio Negro, which is more of a masculine type of thing, is that you have Maria, and then in Italian, for the male, you have Mario, right? And we just finish this last character here. I'm going to remember there's enough of a coinage to take the picture, but they also go back into the next character. So the Rio Negro, which is basically the Black River, or at least the Dark River, anyways. They'll use the word Negro and Kata interchangeably with black, even though in Greek there is a specific word for black called mavro or mavri, depending on how it's used in a sentence. And you'll have people in Greek, if you know people, there's Mavro Yanis, there's Mavro Yorgis, there's, Mavro Yanis is Black John, Mavro Yorgis is Black George. The same thing we have. My last name is, the full last name is Karathanasis, but when my grandfather came from Greece, they shortened it. They shortened it to Karas or Kara. So just the first part is left of the full name. So we have uh, again, you all have Kara. We have Karathanasis, which is Tom in English. We use the word Tom for Thanasi. Uh, It's just about 5:15 right now. So we just have about uh, ooh, 15, 20 minutes to play. Then it's time. Then we gotta take a break for a bit, and then we'll come back. Yeah. So my last name, the kata part is all that's left, which is basically dark. It's black. And I said, thank you for your comment. I see there's one comment here. Uh, I will be answering comments. Uh, Hopefully, if they're still left there, please go to the YouTube webpage, the YouTube page. Uh, this is where I can see the comments more specifically. And then in the next video, the next airing, which will be 15 to 20 minutes after this airing, I'll answer the questions or the comments there, or sort of comment on your comment. So I say I thank you for your comment. The one comment seems to have disappeared, but anyways, I try to make sure that these comments stay up and try to see them as much as possible. But it's not always possible to do that. It's not popping up, but there is this. Bringing 6,000 coins. We're now close to 940,000. This is what we got with the Madam Butterfly. No, it's not working. There's a little orange thing down to the left there. That's where the comments are supposed to pop out of, but they're not popping out. So let's run with this character here. Spike. Take care of my ringtone. Yeah, so my last name basically means nigger. So, and given some of my features, because there are African Greeks, there are Greeks because Alexander the Great went into Africa, then into North Africa, and the Greeks were intermingled with the um who were they again? The Carthaginians, who were African. And the thing is, you had the ancient Christian church prior to Catholicism went all the way from Egypt down into Sudan and into Ethiopia. So you have an ancient Christian tradition, not the modern European tradition uh, in Africa. So it was never, and particularly during the Byzantine Empire, the last half of the Roman Empire. Uh, Part of being the Christian Empire, the Roman when the Roman Empire became Christian, the Christians, and this is specifically the Christians, were ordered to release all their slaves. The first emancipation of slaves occurred not in the United States but in the Middle East. And this is where you get into the whole thing of the Roman Catholic Church not being Christian, because slavery was never Christian. I said this was one of the purposes of Christianity was to eliminate slavery, and it did this by saying that all men were children of Christ, children of God, and that God was the Father and no longer simply the Master, as you had in other pagan type religions, the statue religions, where they worship various different gods. Good showing from Spike here. Comment stuff is not coming up, so I can't see the comments. If there are any comments, well, there's that one comment pops up, then it disappears, and I will go back to the desktop and I can't find it. It doesn't. For some reason, Twitch doesn't keep the comments. So I can't go back and see what the comment was I could comment on it. So this is what I'm saying. The comment system in YouTube is better. Leave your comments there, and that way I can see them and bring them into the live stream more properly. So watch here, post your comments. If you want to post them here, if you want, I can't guarantee that I'm going to see them. I can't see them immediately while I'm playing because they don't fit on the. That wasn't good. They don't fit on the screen with the gameplay. Yeah, so the purpose of the purpose of the early Christian church was to eliminate, really, in many ways, to eliminate. Oh, it crashed. There was for some reason it crashed. Let me just see something here. Yeah, I'm just doing some. Oh, okay, there it is. We're back properly online. Somehow we disappeared from the whole game just sort of restarted itself. Yeah, so the original purpose of Christianity, one of the original features of it, was anti-slavery, in that we were all children of God. But the papacy didn't seem to like that. They were more interested in war and conquering. So they changed everything. This is why you have on the Sistine Chapel, you have God as Zeus. You have that white guy on the Sistine Chapel. Well, there is no depiction of God, um, only of Christ. And Christ was not white European. He was a Hebrew, uh, a certain type of Jew known as a Nazarene, because there were a variety of different types of Jews, not simply one type of Jew. Uh, so sorry for the white supremacists, but Christ was a Jew, and he was a dark one at that. So he wasn't a lily white. He wasn't a white European Jew. He was from the Middle East, and so he had the skin of a Middle Easterner, right? Which was in many ways people in the Middle East had a mixture between the African and Asian, with an African and Asian mix. And this is sort of what you see today. Is you have in the Middle East, you have a mix between the Africans and the Asians, which would have dead and horrify white people. So what they call this the mixed mud races. I'm not going to bother doubling that up. But this is the most people that don't know this part of the Christian church know that the Roman Catholic Church is primarily anti-Christian. They simply view the church as it is. And this is why you have the conflict between the church's authority, and the authority of science, which and with the advent of the atomic bomb, which was theoretically impossible. The atomic bomb was theoretically impossible. They had determined this in Europe, uh, and so when the experimentalists in the United States actually developed the atomic bomb, particularly Enrico Fermi, he actually got the reaction to go. It was a surprise in 1945 when the bomb went off because no one in Europe, none of the academic elites or anything, ever thought that this was going to happen. Well, you go back and ask the academic elite at this time if you can imagine entire banks of computers, uh, which this is back as not early into the 1800s, but 1950. Ask them if you could fit an entire bank of computers that took entire buildings. Ask them if you could fit this in your pocket and be working on it as a phone the way we are now. These were theoretical, including most of the technology we have today, were theoretical impossibilities. So if you look at the history of theory, you see the history of theory is almost never right. I mean, this was true if you go back and look at the history of Newton. Newton didn't develop his theories, his work inside the university. He was an alchemist. It was after he finished his work as an alchemist and had written his work on nature. This is when he becomes sort of the constant professor. They accept him into the universities as one of their own, as part of the academic elite, but only after he's finished his work. These are the kind of people who only know you and recognize you once you've done something successful and amazing. Prior to that, they don't even want to. Newton who? We don't know this guy. As soon as he's realizes that he's right, and he's got this fantastic book on nature. Wow, we knew Newton all along, and he was our buddy. We were hanging out with him, having coffee, and so to speak. But you understand the type of the person that is the hanger on, the person who rides on somebody else's success and claims it for their own. This is what Canada does for the movie industry. Actually, uh, they don't know you while you're coming up, but as soon as you're famous, they immediately put your name on the Alley du Fame, the Walk of Fame, or as I call it, the Digging Up the Dead Festival, where they're trying to. This is McGill's, because most of the Canadian culture is decided by McGill. There's a think tank in McGill that does this, and they determine what Canada is. So sometimes we're we're British, we're Australian, we're New Zealanders, anything that's not American. I gotta turn this down. Kind of forgot where I am now. uh, yeah, so they have this sort of Canadian digging up the dead festival, and this is kind of what science was like. The whole academic elite issue was more of something that was more of an attitude than reality. But of course, as everyone knows, attitude often comes crashing down uh, as reality rears its ugly head. This is why most people don't like the truth. They don't want to be actually open minded. It has to do with the fact that if they are indeed open minded, that it's going to interfere with their reality. This was a mistake here. Anyways, now we're going to run with Zoe the zombie. Let's see where we are. Yeah, we have one run with Zoe the zombie, and then we'll take our break, and then we'll come back and continue our run. So Zoe's our last one before the break. There'll be a break for about a half hour, 45 minutes. We will come back and continue the wordy weekend. Yeah, so as I was saying, This is the way a lot of people are. They don't really want to know the truth. They want things that will confirm their own ideas, and we see this actually a lot in many groups. And this is the whole issue with groups, and why I end up being the ultimate nonconformist, because I don't conform to the concept of that simply because a group believes something that I have to believe it as well. I make up my own choices as to what I believe and how I believe. You know, my decision was a long time ago, and this is actually, why I ended up as an independent researcher, not with a university, is I didn't want to accept the university's guidelines. I wanted to be independent. I want my work to be objective, not subjective. I don't want my ideas and everything to be subject to somebody else's approval. If my ideas are true, and there's an objective world out there, there's a reality beyond my own concept. And this is what postmodern is, and even socialism is that concept rules all. And this is the distinction between a modernist and a postmodernist. A modernist believes that there is rules and structures dictated by science, a reality that can be authorized. You have a deterministic world. The postmodernist believes that concept still does rule all, but that everything is a concept and there is no reality. This is what produces the nihilist. This is what produces the cousin to the nihilist, or the other side of the coin of nihilism, is anarchy. Anarchy and nihilism are siblings, if you will. And they were produced by postmodernism in the belief that there is no social structure, and that these people, as anarchists, their job as anarchists, as nihilists, as postmodernists, is to destroy and bring down established societies because it's all fake and not real. And this is the distinction between somebody who is a Marxist, a modernist socialist, and someone like Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is a postmodernist. She believes in a purely conceptual world. There is no reality outside of her own thoughts and ideas. Her world, as she sees it, and this is the way most postmodernists are, is supreme. And when they fall back to it, because some of their ideas start to fail, they fall back to modernism. Say, well, science is the highest truth. Well, if that in case were the case, that science was the highest truth, then science, as the academics, would have been right all along about the computer. They would have been right about the computer chip. They would have been right about cell phones. They would have been right about the atomic bomb. And you see that they never were. They never were right about any of these things. And so this is, as I came up and I started doing the research and began to realize this, I began to realize that there was no way for me to stay within a normal institution within the university. And I figured this out from my second year of university. So what I did is ended up leaving, setting up my own research facilities, and sort of struck out on my own with using the random walk from quantum physics. If this concept was true, including the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, that it would apply a lot more to more than just the atomic physics. You would see this in larger areas as well. And so if I took a random walk and began doing observation only, allowing observation to determine my next direction, then I would come to conclusions after I've collected enough materials that would be similar or have some degree of reflection to what was in the textbook. This would give me an idea that something was on the path, that I was on the right path. But of course, what would happen is I would realize that and this is what ended up happening. Yes, there were certain things that were textbook, but there was a lot that was not textbook. And this is how my sort of my individualism grew, and it moved into the church. It helps in terms of how I viewed Christianity. That caused a lot of problems with friends and family and stuff like that. Then of course the politics goes the same way. Uh, Politics, I don't care about the politician. The politicians really, in many cases, they're pretty much all the same. The only fundamental difference between the Republicans and the Democrats is that with the Republicans, you can consistently get a smaller government. And if you're interested in that smaller government, you want to be more independent, you want to be a freer person, then you want smaller government. And so the Republican vote for an independent is simply a means to the end. It's not simply, oh, I like Republicans, so I'm voting for Republicans. It's simply they're the ones who produce the least amount of government. They're not intrusive. They're not invasive. They lock themselves in their country clubs and they stay there. And, well, that's fine with me because I don't want to be involved with them anyways. And that's sort of the independent mind. The vote is more of a pragmatic vote than anything else. There is no idealism in the vote itself. And that's kind of where I sit in this whole situation here. And so what happens is we look at people and take the observation of people the same way we do observation of interstellar space, as you would in astronomy or astrophysics, which is connected to quantum physics and to a certain degree cybernetics. If you take that approach, then you can sort of peruse society or observe society in a manner that is pretty much similar. And this gives you a unique way of seeing things that really most of the people don't see. But of course, it also causes conflict. Why I forgot to turn down the volume on here. I said this is what produces conflict with people who are independents. Is that unless you have these proper sides for Republicans or Democrats, and Democrats are the ones who are more uh, sort of obstinate about these different things because they're the ones who are humanitarian. They're nice. They're they're everything that a Republican isn't. And this is what happens here. Sometimes the swipe produces something like this. So I have to go back to the game, swipe that off, wait till the media goes away, then swipe. I was swiping too much. Just bring the comments back in because the comments don't show up there anyways. 3,957, not bad at all. We got our big prize. Let's see what it is. It'll be 4,000 when we double it up. Bring this back down again. Yeah, so this is part of my qualifiers, but also part of needing to understand qualifiers of who I am, where I sit in the situation, but also gives you an insight to, in many ways, why Hilary Clinton the way she is. She's a postmodernist. She came up in a post-nuclear world, where she can't. Her age is actually the nuclear age, uh, which destroyed a lot of the sort of Marxist ideals and belief in science. So in many ways, anyone who's called themselves an atheist is fundamentally a Marxist if they fundamentally believe in science. The thing is, the problem, they believe in science. And as they believe in science, it because of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, not because of religion, where you can't actually prove things are probabilistic. they're in once again a religion because they can't say that God doesn't exist. They can say God probably doesn't exist, but that doesn't make them atheists. Atheist is a Greek term for no God. The term is agnostic, without knowledge of God. So they don't know about God or don't know if there is a God. They're agnostic, not atheists. Anyways, that's it for now. We're going to take a half hour, 45-minute break, and then we'll come back.